Hello, everybody. Can you, morning. So you have joined us in terms of a webinar, and we will be talking about how to justify your marketing spend to your boss. Okay, so let's get started. So your speakers today include myself. Most of you probably already know me or will have met me. I'm the head of digital marketing here at Xpand. I've been in sales and marketing, originally recruitment, for the last 20 years, although it's probably a bit longer. It makes me feel really old, so we'll just skip past that. In my previous role, I was trained by LinkedIn, and so they came to our offices and spent time with me, training me on how to use the platform. So I absolutely love it, and it is definitely one of my specialities. And I'm also CIM certified. Fran, like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Fran, everybody. I work at Xpand as a social media exec. I've been working in social media for 2 years now and come from a background of hospitality and retail and design. And at Xpand, I look after all our clients' social media pages.
And advertising.
And advertising.
Don't
Bit of everything.
Strategy and all. Okay, so what we're actually going to cover today, we're going to talk about 8 ways to justify your marketing spend. So we all know that when it comes to spending money within any business, justifying money for marketing is one of the hardest things to do. I know, I've been there. I've worked in-house and was a marketing manager for several years. I know it's hard to justify any sort of spend, even when it comes down to paying for a social media platform to post schedules on. So we're going to go through some ways that will help you support justifying that additional spend, or even when it comes to putting together a plan. We're also going to include some examples along the way as well. And as I said before, there will be time for questions and answers at the end. So, anybody recognise any of these objections? Raise your hands, use the little hand tool if you have experienced this from an opposite side. If there's anything that your boss has ever said back to you, anybody in the business, you know, you've asked for a particular thing, what have they come back with? So I've definitely had this one a hell of a lot. And I mean, Fran, do you display on social media? Is that what you do all day?
Yeah, pretty much. If you ask anyone else, that is what I do all day.
And definitely this one over here, I even had a Sue in finance. So that is literally word for word. So yeah, these things, they do sound very familiar. And it's not because our bosses are dicks, as much as we probably want to say that they are. Hopefully none of them are on this call. But basically, it's because they are generally salespeople, and they're usually all for the ROI and the business impact. They want to see a clear link between marketing activities and measurable business outcomes. They want to see increased revenue. They want to see customer acquisition and market share. They want to know how it's allocated budget-wise. They need that reassurance, and obviously they need some help when it comes down to risk. So it's not that they're trying to make our jobs difficult, although if you'd have said that to me 5-6 years ago, I'd have probably argued that black was white with you then. So, you know, but you know, it is kind of seeing it from their point of view as well. And that is what this webinar is all about, is how we can justify that and show that we understand. So we did a little bit of research, and we spoke with our friend ChatGPT, or as we like to call him, Chad. So we have Chad and Brad. Chad. So we asked Chad, what do bosses think about marketing? And he gave us, I'm calling him a he, could be a she. Technically, machines are usually she's, aren't they? So
we don't
or they. We'll go with they. No, exactly. We'll keep it neutral. They came back with a lot of different answers for it. So opinions of bosses, that can be really widely depending on individual backgrounds, experiences, attitudes. However, so these were some of the common themes that they came with. So, you know, investment and expense. we're talking about bosses viewing marketing as a necessary investment. You know, some do see it that it is necessary, and they understand that effective marketing can drive sales and that it will increase brand visibility and create customer loyalty. You know, there's a lot of different areas of marketing now, and it's not just, you know, pitching sales promotions at people. There's a lot around employee advocacy. You know, the world of marketing has grown so much in the last 2-3 years, let alone centuries. So, you know, on the other hand, they may also see that expense needs to be minimized, especially if they've got concerns about the ROI or they lack understanding of the impact. They want to see things are measurable. Many bosses want to see marketing efforts that they're quantifiable and that they are tied to specific outcomes. They expect marketing teams to provide data and analytics that demonstrate effective campaigns. Customer centric, obviously they recognize the importance of strong customer building and also about retaining those customers too. So it's, you know, looking at how marketing supports that. Innovation, creativity, you know, thinking outside the box, alignment with business goals, change. You know, we all know change. We're going to talk a bit about that. Risk, reward, integration with sales. Well, that's definitely one of the points we're going to cover today. And lots of data, you know. They need to see evidence around all of these points. They need to get it. But the most striking point and probably most concerning from our point of view, Fran, I think we definitely agreed this was quite concerning for us.
100%.
It came back and it told us some may see marketing as an expense that needs to be minimised, especially if they have concerns about ROI or a lack of clear understanding of marketing's impact. So the thing that what concerned us with this when we got this answer back was that AI learns, you know, it's learning from what's out there across the World Wide Web. So at some point it's learned this. It is learning that people see marketing as an expense that needs to be minimized. We all know as marketers that's wrong. You know, the investment you put into marketing is what you get out at the end. So what does it mean to you? Well, firstly, it means your job in marketing has become a whole lot harder because you have to justify what that spend will get them, but you also have to make it clear that you understand the objections that are coming at you as well. You need to block any challenges and concerns before they become that. So you almost need to develop a superpower of knowing exactly what they're going to say no about before they say it. But how do you do that? Well, don't worry, we're going to tell you. I'm going to share that with you, hopefully. Now, for some of you, this may be a bit of a refresher. You may already know a lot of this, but it's always good to refresh. And for others, it might be completely new. So we're going to set 3 things, mainly the overriding. So clearly defining your marketing objectives, first one. Regularly communicating the results. And thirdly, using data and case studies. So these 3 things go into everything, and that's when we break down the 8 ways in the strategy. So let's dig a little deeper. We thought we'd put a cute dog in there. Everybody likes a cute dog, don't they?
Very cute.
That's why we want this dog. Anyway, the webinar is not about this cute dog. So let's keep going. So when you are putting together a budget request, and this could be for one thing, it could be for your whole plan, it could be for your whole strategy, it could be anything at all. In the sense of this webinar, we're kind of talking about an overall budget plan. So, you know, imagine that you're putting together your budget for next year. So, strategy 1, building relationships and collaboration. Now, developing relationships is absolutely crucial, but where do you actually begin? Now, we all know the old age, you know, the rivalry between sales and marketing. You know, we might not like to admit it, but it's still there. And I still speak to many marketing managers that work in-house, and they have that frustration that people, you know, the sales team are always doing this, they never listen to me, they're never this. And we're going to talk about, you know, things that we can do there. So firstly, regular reporting. Keep your boss in the know. Tell them what's going on, what ongoing activity is happening, sharing results, any upcoming plans, and send them monthly, even weekly reports. If you know your boss better than anybody else, if they're the kind of boss that needs to be kept involved weekly, then do that. I know it's a pain. I do. I've been there. I totally get it. It's not ideal. But in the long run, it will work out better because they will feel like they've had a part in it. And that's really important. And that's not necessarily just your boss. I mean, the sales team manager is potentially someone you could also keep that in line with and reporting those wins to them. It will definitely help. Listen and incorporate feedback. Actively seek feedback. Then demonstrate how you've incorporated their suggestions or their concerns into your budget plan, into your proposal. So, you know, if somebody says to you, well, actually, I'm a bit concerned because of time, then take that on board and think about how you can get around that and deliver that back to them. Align with the business's priorities. So show that your marketing efforts are aligned with the company's overall business objectives. By doing this, you show your commitment to the company's success. It's not marketing against anybody else. The whole point marketing exists is to support that company and the success of the company. So why wouldn't they align to the business objectives? Your boss will love that. Collaborate across departments. So I mentioned it before we got on this slide. I'm sure everyone's definitely heard of those issues that I talked about before. It really doesn't have to be that way. Marketing and sales can work together in harmony. They can, I promise you. And hopefully there'll be people on this call that have that, and that's great. One way to do that is actually involving them in the process. And yes, it can be painful and it can be timely because they don't always get it, because sales guys, they want results and they want them now. A lot of them are commission focused, so they're driven by money. You know, it's a very different form of person when you think of things like personality traits and disc styles, if anyone's heard of those. You know, there's a very different person that you're dealing with. But involving them in the process is really big for them. You know, you're listening and you're actually finding out what matters to them, and by having that's quite powerful as well. Involving them in the process and asking them what they want, and your finance teams as well, and any other teams depending on how your setup is, you know, finding out what matters to them and what you know, approaching them and saying, you know, if I can get X amount of budget to support your department, what would your priorities be? You know, and asking them. Now, you're not always going to be able to actually do everything, but you can utilize them as your influencers then. If you have their desirables and you can include them where possible, then, you know, that could help with so much more. But the big thing here, don't make promises you can't keep. Because if you say, yes, I'll definitely get you all of those things, and then you can't get them all of those things, you've lost them, and that's it, they're gone, and you've combated your whole strategy is just out of the window. So there is an example I can give you here. So when I worked in recruitment, we had sales guys on, you know, obviously hitting the phones, talking to schools all the time. We had one sales guy in particular, he was really good at selling, like proper, you know, on the phone, proper top geezer in terms of, you know, banging out the calls all the time, and his sales results were very high. Now, we approached him as an individual and did exactly that, right? You know, what would you like marketing to support you with? You know, in an ideal world, if you had a marketer that was just for you, what would you have that person do? He gave us a bit of a list. We then worked out how we could bring him into the strategy, into the plan, what budget what we needed in order to support those desirables, And then he went away and sold us to the rest of his team. Every single meeting that we had, he would report on how well marketing had done. He changed from being one of those sales guys that goes, oh no, you didn't send a flyer to that school. I called them last week. So it's definitely from me, to marketing actually got me a lead the other day because they did XYZ. And it was a huge change around because we'd listened to him and we'd incorporated his feedback and we collaborated with him.
So strategy 2, anticipating and addressing objections. We all know we're going to get these, but actually proactively dealing with them and knowing and being prepared to actually be one step ahead is going to be really important to make sure and just show that you are kind of thinking about these things. So one of the ways you can do this is preemptive communication. So that's just anticipating those objections from people. You know, think about it from their point of view, like Danny was saying. You've got to really kind of get almost like a bird's eye view of everyone. It's not obviously just from the marketing perspective. And if you do know someone that you think is going to have a problem, speak to them ahead of time. You know, if they're going to sit, you know, they're going to be a bit of a pain in the bum, just have a little quick chat with them, be like, you know, it's all addressed in the presentation and I'm going to explain why X, Y, Z. The next one is like managing risks. So you want to show not risky. So if you're showing that you know these might happen, how they can pop up, but also show that you are prepared. Kind of, you know, you want to be flexible, show them that you are kind of ready and listening to what they think might be the challenges as well. So, and then the next one would be a cost benefit analysis. So provide a thorough cost benefit analysis, and that demonstrates the benefits of the marketing spend outweighing the risks. You know, you want to look at the pros and cons of it, of your marketing strategy. You know, what are the steps after it works or doesn't. You really want to just give them a huge overhaul of everything to make sure you're actually showing you know your stuff. And then the last one would be testing and pilots. So you probably, if you do get an objection or someone saying, well, I don't know if that's going to work, one of the best things you can do is to suggest you test it out on a smaller scale. So for example, we've been working with Mind in Bradford on their social ads recently. And we decided, they were thinking, we want to try TikTok. We're not sure if it's for us. We're like, well, let's try it for a month or so, see what happens, you know, maybe have a smaller budget. And then from there, when you see the results, you can decide if you want to do it or if you don't. But just always remember to bring that evidence afterwards if it was successful and why, to make sure they understand. And then, you know, someone that we know, a marketing manager that we work with, you know, influence is power. Never let anything be a surprise. So you just want to be prepared as possible in those situations. You know, you don't want to be that person. You don't want people to think you're that person that is scrolling on social media all day. You want to avoid that as much as possible.
Okay. Strategy 3, we're jumping into budget allocation and resource planning now. So as a marketing manager, you'll often face the challenge of justifying your budget allocation to higher ups. So by what we mean here is it's not the general over budget, you know, it's how you allocate it to the different things. So the different channels or the different campaigns that you're running. Okay, but how do you do that? One way is by basing your budget allocation on data. So using sites like Data Reportal or Hootsuite's reports, which they regularly bring out, looking back at historical performance, any marketing trends, and relating the allocation to this. So if you have a particular campaign that you did last year, maybe, you know, social ads or something, or PPC, and you're like, right, that worked really well, bring that into this year's proposal as well. So, you know, we did this and it worked, or we did this and it didn't work because of XYZ. So this time we know we need to do that. So, you know, not just focusing on the positives of what worked, but bringing in the data of things that didn't work, but can work because you now know that you need to tweak this, if that makes sense. show how previous investments have yielded positive results. So, you know, again, you know, just bring in anything that's actually worked on a positive note as well. You know, if you invested X amount of money into your PR and you found that that actually created a load more opportunities, then showcase that. It's a positive result. Cost benefit analysis. So Fran's just alluded to it slightly, but basically what we're saying here is breaking down each campaign, each section, and what each thing will cost. Don't just stick with the overall. So, you know, looking at each marketing initiative, each channel, how much do we want to spend on PPC? Do we even want to touch PR? Are we having an email campaign? Well, how much is that going to cost? And include all of the costs as well. So, you know, there's not much software that's free nowadays. So make sure that you are including that in these analysis as well. So, you know, the cost of MailChimp or whatever it is that you're using, include those in there. Don't leave anything out, because it will all rack up, and then that's where your budget will get all messed up. Comparing the potential returns against the investment required. So, you know, demonstrating the value. So if we spend X, we'll get Y. Be clear with what each initiative will deliver. So exactly what I've just said, you know, if we spend £500 on social media advertising, we've forecasted that we'll get X amount of profit back from customers buying. Prioritize high impact activities. So focus on the activities that have the high potential to impact those business goals. So, you know, the business objectives, you know, what is the overall goal? Hopefully you'll know where the business is going and what they would like to achieve in the next 12 months, 5 years, whatever it is. Have a look and go, right, well, what are the things that have the highest potential of achieving those, and make sure that you prioritize those, because they're potentially the things where you'll get the best ROI and the quickest as well. Justify why investing more in those areas will yield better results. So, you know, if you need to justify investing in a strategy where, yes, that is going to be a higher cost, but actually we need that in order to prioritize what matters. So, you know, it might be that your business is looking at social now and how they can, you know, take on TikTok, or, you know, it's something new to the business, but where do you start with that? It might have a high potential, but you might need to invest more in terms of training or support as well. So keep in mind all of those things as well. Be pragmatic. So before, as Fran mentioned, before we actually put together this webinar, we did speak to some of the marketing managers that we work with, and some of these tips along the way have been provided by them. This was one that was actually received from one of our marketing directors, and she works in a global business, and the biggest tip that she gave was be pragmatic. Be prepared to swap one thing for another. So we all probably have been in those scenarios where you're pitching a budget plan, or, you know, you're talking about a campaign and someone in the room goes, well, what if we did it on this one? Or what if we did TikTok as well? And you're like, oh crap, I didn't budget for that. So be prepared to actually swap one thing out for another thing, and have that in the back of your mind that, you know, if something comes up in that meeting that actually is worth doing, then you're prepared to drop those other two things in order to do it. So just be aware to have them. Flexibility and scalability. Well, I'm sure we would all love to be as flexible as this lovely lady over here. I know I would. Probably wouldn't have much backache working on a computer like that. I'm not really sure that I could. Well, I definitely could not bend over like that. I don't even think I'd try. I'd get stuck. I'm like, Fran, help me. But this slide is particularly interesting, you know, compared to what we've just been through. With everyone, the whole world has just been through a pandemic. You know, nobody could have prepared for that. But now we know that something like that could happen. It's not a bad thing to have a backup plan and being flexible and adaptable to that change. One of the biggest things for us at the moment, we work with manufacturing businesses and construction. Recruitment's a nightmare for them at the moment, and, you know, having that the skills. They're having to be really flexible and adapt to that climate and what's happening, and probably a couple of years ago they wouldn't have been thinking they would all be fighting for the same skilled engineers, whereas now they are. So a lot of them are having to look at things like their employment brand. How do they look to someone who might want to work at their company but has 5 other there's that side of marketing to think about as well. Showing that you can scale up or scale down depending on the results and the feedback. Now, none of us have a crystal ball. We can work on forecasting. Facebook's good at giving us forecasting, but does it always give the right things? No, it doesn't always, or things happen and we have to adapt to them. So show that in your report, in your proposal, show them that, right, okay, well, there is a risk, and we're talking about the risk again, there is a risk that this might not work, but if X happens, then it's okay because we've got Y planned. So, showing all of the possibilities so that nobody can go, well, what if? There is no what ifs, I've covered them all. Remember the can you just moments and include them here. So I remember a lot of these. My God, I'm probably going to need you to talk to me afterwards, Fran, just to give me a little bit of calming down. But I remember one incident where my team and I were working extremely late to try and get some brochures prepared, put together, because we were having a new product release and they needed to all go out on the national day to do with teaching assistants. And we were running the deadline. And a couple of the guys came over and were like, oh, I've got school meetings tomorrow. Can you just do me a pack on these candidates, or can you just put me together a CV on this person? And it was like, no, I cannot just do you that. But obviously in those moments, a lot of the time our sales director would be like, well, they do need doing. So make sure that you include them here, not just in terms of budget, but time as well. We're not just talking about monetary here, we're talking about your time. Time is money, it is a cost, and it does work out in that analysis. If you've got one of your team members dropping what they should be doing to do some can you just moments, then that needs to be in your report and your proposal. It's you, Fran. I nearly carried on then. Sorry.
You're on a roll then, it's fine.
I was. Sorry. It's the emotion.
It's getting to you, Danny.
Yeah.
All right. So strategy 4 is developing a results-oriented marketing plan. So a well-defined marketing plan is the foundation for justifying your marketing spend. And with this, you want to be as specific as possible. Show the aims and objectives, also show how you're going to get there. It's quite easy to say, oh, well, we want to do this, and then you're just left to figure it out afterwards. And that's just not the very fun part of it. You just want to make sure you are prepared, like we've been saying. The way to do this is clear objectives. And so what we kind of mean by that is setting those SMART objectives. If you don't know what a SMART objective is, it means specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound objectives. And you want to make sure you're aligning these with the business goals, not just your marketing goals as well. It just shows that you are kind of thinking of the greater company. You just want to clearly define what you want to achieve and the steps for it and the resources you're going to need as well. Having more or giving your bosses more clarity is really going to put you in a much better stead than just kind of being a bit vague and general. The next one is define your target audience. Your target audience, you should know inside and out, hopefully. You should be able to say, well, they're not going to be interested in that. The kind of best way we go about this is creating audience personas. We could go into a whole nother webinar about audience personas, but we won't. We'll keep it kind of brief. Audience personas are obviously just a persona of your target audience, include lots of different things. There are demographics, who they are, where they're from, what the pain points are, interests, all that kind of thing. You kind of want to know everything about all of them and be able to say, well, so and so, we give ours names actually. So Martin, one of ours, does Martin actually care about this? Will this actually impact him? And if the answer is so what, then it's kind of like, well, should I be doing this? Maybe not. That's why it's always really handy to make sure you understand your target audience. The next one is strategies and tactics. So outlining the marketing strategies that you will actually employ to achieve your objectives. You have goals, like I said before, but how are you going to get there, the steps you're going to take. You know, if the goal is brand awareness, how do you actually achieve that? You know, what metrics do you need to look at to be able to say, this is what we've achieved, or this is where I'm going to set the target for. And then the last thing here, oh no, not the last thing, sorry, is explain why you choose these approaches. You know, it's all about making sure they understand where you've kind of got all this information from. Don't just tell them, well, I want to do this. Explain, you know, well, I've looked at our audience and I've looked at this research and this has worked before and now I want to try this. It's all about, you know, the clarity that's going to help. So the next one is budget allocation. You know, allocating your marketing budget based on your strategies and stuff, ensuring that you've got the right amount into each kind of objective that you want. You know, refer to those business goals and why you kind of want to get there. Show how you're prioritizing that budget, like Danny was saying before. If you need to kind of put a bit more into one certain thing, explain why and tell them why. And just bring up that data to back up what you're saying. You know, it's all about that clarity. And then contingency plans, like we said before, it's all about anticipating potential challenges that might occur, show you have a backup plan in place, and just like we were saying, be flexible. You know, this is where the risk mitigation strategy from the second strategy kind of comes in handy. You just want to be prepared.
Okay, and then once you've kind of got all of this together and you know where your, you know, what your plan is and what you budget for each campaign, you should then also be defining key metrics in order to achieve this success. So showcasing these out will help. So if you take, for instance, this lovely example here, show, demonstrate, and evidence. So you need to show and demonstrate and evidence with your metrics. So use your metrics to follow this. So you begin by showing how your marketing proposal supports the vision and the mission and the strategy of your organization. Think about how it contributes to the key performance indicators, the KPIs, and the metrics that matter to those senior management, to your boss, and also any investors that you might have in the business that look at this sort of thing as well. Make sure that you're showing that. Then you need to demonstrate how the metrics relate to the general business objectives. So I know we keep banging on about that, but it's because it's so important. How will it actually help the business achieve those other relevant business outcomes? And then finally, evidence it. Always evidence it. Now, if you take anything away from this webinar, hopefully this will be a key part of it. Show, demonstrate, and evidence. Use data to show the ROI. Use data and evidence, back it up. Back up any of your claims, show the return on investment. We know from earlier, ChatGPT told us that was one of the things that bosses are unclear about, the return on investment. They're not sure about it. So make sure it's in there and that you're demonstrating how you will achieve that. Here are some examples that we can share with you. So increase revenue. So think of these on the left as being the ones, you know, that your boss has set as the company's overall objectives. We want to increase revenue. Of course we do. Every business wants to increase revenue. It wouldn't be a business if not. Even charities need to increase revenue. Improving customer satisfaction, because if your customers are not happy, then what's the point? You know, you're not going to have anybody buying anything. And expand market share. Again, you know, market share, having the biggest piece of pie is obviously going to support any business objective. So how do you then turn these into metrics that help your boss understand the return on investment is linked? Increased revenue becomes increased conversions on your landing page. You know, talking about how many people are visiting the homepage or whatever landing page you choose that you're pushing out there, then, you know, how many people are actually clicking buy now or book now or whatever that call to action is. You can get really defined with these key metrics. Improving customer satisfaction could be something as simple as increasing your 5-star Google reviews. You know, if you use social media, increasing your reviews on social media. If you are working on a LinkedIn strategy with your sales guys, increasing the amount of testimonials that they have, recommendations on their individual profiles. You know, you can get quite granular with them, quite specific. Expanding market share can literally become increased brand awareness, and you can dig this down into your vanity metrics, which we personally like to avoid because you can get too hung up on how many followers you have. But, you know, visits to the website, things like that. One of the social KPIs that we like to use with our clients is how many visitors have gone from social to the website. For us, we work with our clients to let them, you know, to say that that is one of the better measurements to look at than how many people are following the page, because nowadays people don't really care for following. But if they've made that connection and they've gone from your social media to your website, then that shows that there's intent. So that's a better kind of metric to look at. And that also then will help, like I say, with just, you know, convincing your boss that you are aware of what the long-term goals are, and this is how we can incorporate our KPIs in marketing to those long-term goals. Demonstrating marketing's impact on business growth, profitability, and cost effectiveness with example metrics like these. So, website traffic. I'm sure most of you will know this metric is basically based on the number of visitors that come to your website. It's a good indicator on how well your marketing's reaching your target audience. So it's in line with the brand awareness, as I said before. Leads generated, probably going to be one that your boss sits up and listens to, because obviously, again, we're talking about actual leads and sales figures here. So, you know, this is where you can get quite granular. They measure the number of people that have expressed interest in your products or your service, and it's a good indicator of how effective your marketing is at generating interest in your business. So, you know, the promotional side of things, if you've got maybe a downloadable for a LinkedIn ad, you know, how many leads have come back from that, those sort of KPIs. Sales close, this metric, this measures how many people have actually bought the product or the service. It's the most important metric in form of ROI for your marketing. So make sure that you definitely have any statistics and data in there for that, and that you have KPIs planned that align to that. How are you going to measure those people? Customer lifetime value, it measures the long-term profitability. So basically, it's how long that and how much money any new person will work with you. So it's how over the lifetime, how much revenue can you expect to actually get from that person, from that customer, and then working that out. It's, you know, it's a good way to see, right, okay, well, we've brought marketing will bring, you know, it's easy, we can do short-term campaigns, and we can, you know, we can put Facebook ads out there and get like quick sales. Potentially it takes a long time to build them up and get them going, but eventually once they're working, you'll get a steady trickle of products bought, if you're working in particularly B2C arena. However, what does that mean for your customer lifetime value? Where's the statistic and the KPI and the data that we can put in there that helps your boss see that actually we can then remarket to these people, and we can, you know, push other things in front of them? You know, say for example, they buy something that needs servicing, you know, we can then retarget them. So looking at that lifetime value. Cost per acquisition, it's the metric that it's how much it costs for you to bring a new customer on board. So if you do things like PPC or Google, Facebook advertising, anything like that, you'll have an idea of how much that costs per every acquisition, every customer. You can look at it in different channels as well and just work out that how much you spent last year maybe on email marketing, how much did you spend, how many customers came because of it, divide that by the amount of customers, gives you an idea of how much it cost you So working that kind of statistic out and giving that data and working on it as a KPI going forward will help them see the ROI. So the key here is to know your numbers, but then also don't be afraid to show your numbers. I think sometimes in marketing we can get very guarded when it comes to statistics and numbers, and we're concerned that sometimes we don't quite meet data and things like that, but it's better to be black and white with them and to show them, and then to provide an answer with how we can better it, or also how it might be better than others as well, the positives. So if you have evidence from the previous years, use it. Use data, back it up. You know, it's easier to go to the table and ask for a larger budget if you've got data proving that you spent last year's budget really well. But if I'd have just had £500 more, I could have got you 6 more long-term customers. You know, that sort of data then makes them sit back and go, bloody hell, we should have actually, right, let's do that this year. You know, and you don't have to always reinvent the wheel. You could just do something again, but have more budget this time. Ask your sales team. So we've talked about this already, but when it comes to data, asking them for their feedback on what worked well for them last year or previous years, it doesn't always have to be numbers. And I always said, show your numbers, because yes, they are important, but also if you speak to the top sales guys and they say, well, actually, you know, when you put the brochure out, I had so many people say that they loved it, or that, you know, it meant that they'd buy from us because it was clear to see, or any example that you can think of. But it's useful to have their quotes within your proposal then, because they've said it, and the investors or your boss will go, oh, really? That's what so-and-so thinks. Well, they're my top sellers, so better listen to them. You know, it just helps. Now, some of you may have come across the sales funnel before. We use it quite a lot to explain the buying process. So just to give you an overview of how it works, awareness is top of the funnel. So where we're talking here about people become aware that they might need a product. So for example, your car's broken down, so you become aware that you need a new car. You then go into the consideration phase, where you might then actually be like, right, okay, so I'm going to start looking at cars. I'm going to have Google. I'm going to go on Google and I'm going to see what family cars they have, because I'm a twin mum. I need a family car. As much as I'd love a Porsche, I think that's a bit of a way off. Yeah, car seats will go in the back. So I'm Googling family cars, you know, safe family cars, having a look, see what's out there. I might then book to go and test drive a car, and I'll have a little drive round. I might test drive a few. I then will decide on which one I'm going to buy. So I go into the purchase phase. Once I've bought that and I've drove off with my car, what happens then is I go into the retention phase. This is where that garage will then start sending me emails saying your service is due, or do you want to come and get some tyres, or lots of different marketing. So the marketing funnel the sales funnel works well with your marketing, and incorporating this into the business is something really important to do. So why have we shown you this? Because you can use it to make connections between your KPIs and your metrics. So use top of funnel KPIs. So this is the top part where we're talking about getting the customers into the funnel. How do we do that? What can we do to get brand awareness? What can we do to get people into the consideration phase? And then you need to also incorporate the bottom of the funnel. So, you know, what revenue, sales growth, retention, and that lifetime value that we've talked about. How can we retarget? What's the KPI for retargeting?
So strategy 6 is presenting data and analytics to justify your spend. So we all know, we've been in those presentations where people just start going on about, there's loads of text, numbers, jargon being thrown around, and you turn off. And that's the last thing you want to do. So, because as soon as you lose them, it's very hard to bring them back. So the success of justifying a marketing spend relies heavily on how you actually present that data to them. And you obviously want to make it as simple as possible. So the best ways to do that is visual storytelling. Use visual aids like graphs, charts, infographics, make it easy for them to see so they can actually see lots of color, and make it easy for them to understand. But don't be putting too much information on there. Don't have like 3 or 4 charts on there, because it's just going to be, information overload. Keep it as simple as possible. The next one is highlighting key insights. So hopefully, if you've done all your research before and you've got all your data, you want to bring it in and show them what you know what you're talking about, but don't just, like we say, throw loads at them. Keep it to one that's maybe 1 or 2 that's very specific to the outcomes that you want. And make sure you know everything about that, so you don't just kind of say, yeah, this is the highlight, blah, blah, blah. You want to actually explain why. Benchmarking and comparison. So you want to have a look at your industry specific benchmarks, and there's lots of stuff about this online. You can go have a look, and it sets you out where you maybe need to be. It's going to show you some targets and how you can get there, and it's super helpful to kind of, this is just as a starting point to get you started. Use real examples as well. So things like case studies from the past, your history, like Danny was saying, but also from other companies, maybe even your competitors. Have a look what they've been doing, demonstrate, find the ones that demonstrate the potential and the impact, and how it's actually been used, and how you would use it, and how you actually might do something different. Actionable recommendations. So, look at your previous marketing that worked and what didn't, and analyze why this didn't. Actually be honest with them. There's no point trying to hide things, because everyone will find out. So, tell them this didn't work, but we've looked at it this way. Someone's done it in a different kind of lighter way, but we're going to try it this way now, and here's why. Explain that. Everything you can do can be matched by your competitors, especially if they have a bigger marketing budget. Everyone loves to look at their competitors. You can't tell me you don't, that you'd like to be nosy and see what they're doing and what's working for them, because I personally am always doing it. I am there checking what they're posting, if it's working, and why it's working for them. So things you can kind of look at to assess that's going to help you is, their website, the social media, their organic and paid, their PPC if they're doing any, their share of voice, see what they're doing. The bottom right here, there's some useful tools that we use to kind of look at stuff. There's loads of things online to go look at them. And it's so helpful. And when you're in a presentation, people's ears prick up when they hear about their competitors, especially if you show them that didn't work out for them. And if you're doing better for them, it's just going to put you in a much better light, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, our clients definitely do enjoy that.
Yeah, they love it.
Okay, strategy number 7. So leveraging technology and automation. So technology, utilizing these tools, technology and automation can make significant difference. They can help you back up what you're saying. So when we talk about marketing analytic tools, we're talking about advanced marketing tools. So gathering and analyzing data, providing insightful metrics to support your justification. So there's lots of different tools that you can use for that. There's lots of free ones, as Fran mentioned, using some of those to just analyze what's going on in the industry. Automation, use these to generate reports, save yourself some time, save your team members some time. Most of the social media scheduling tools have built-in reports. If that's enough, then just use that. If it covers the specifics, then that sometimes is enough, and it's enough to just provide that consistency as well. A/B testing, implementing A/B testing to optimize and demonstrate the efficiency of your campaigns. So you can just test them against each other It's a great tool to use when it comes to advertising. CRM, so if you don't already have one, a customer relationship management tool, a system that then is integrated, and you can integrate some of these with things like your social media as well. It can track the conversions, it can track interactions, you know, and you can actually see things that are linking. It will give you that information right there for you. And our favourites, as I mentioned earlier, Chad and Brad. So AI can be a complementary tool to your business. Now, it's very unlikely that it's going to take over our jobs. And saying that with complete, like, I do believe that, you know, these tools, they are there, they are useful, and they're there for us to use just as tools. Now, what will happen is, you know, businesses will be using these to write blogs, to create social media content, to do Google ads, things like that. Yes, they can do them, but just think of how generic that's going to get when these AI tools are making them all the time. So what you can do, and what we do here at Xpand, is we use them to assist with our content creation, and that's the most important thing. They are assistants. So we might ask them to put together a structure for a blog, or, you know, give us some ideas for some content creation, or asking them, one of the big things that you could do is research. You can ask them to research a competitor, and, you know, give it the links to the website, give it the links to the social media, and ask it to give you an overview of how they look. You don't need to be afraid of them. You can assist them and you can save time. There is still human element needed in terms of, you know, then formulating how that base then becomes the finished product.
And the last one is include case studies and examples. Like we kind of said before, these are the things that are going to make it so much more relatable and help them understand where you're coming from and what you're talking about. You know, just presenting real life case studies and examples are going to be a lot more convincing, and it's a super powerful way to actually show what it's like, the strategy in kind of working for them. And it's always a really great, compelling argument for your own work and what you're going to do. So when you do a case study, you want to align it with your industry. You know, find case studies from companies within your industry to demonstrate kind of the relevance and how it applies. Find ones, if you have your own ones as well, use those. Show ones with like tangible results, you know, choose ones that actually are really clearly showing that they illustrate how the marketing has actually helped the business and impacted all the outcomes. Include similar challenges, ones that are going to have ones that are similar to the challenges you're facing at the minute or that you might encounter and how you overcome them. These kind of things are always going to add to it, and, you know, it just shows that you are thinking about all the different points that could happen. And then ones that quantify the results. This is what everyone wants to see, those results and that data. You know, use the numbers and make sure you find one that does kind of hopefully actually help your argument and demonstrate the kind of potential return.
So in summary, be results orientated, focus on the results and include them in your budget proposal, and include competitor stats. Use data to back you up, be clear and concise, and highlight the key takeaways. Now, I'm aware that we're nearly on time, but we have one more thing that we want to tell you about. So some of you may already know about our system that we use, our process. This is Solar 7. Solar 7 is the process that we use when working with any of our clients. But what we have realized recently is that it is a tool that can be used within any business. So it's something that I've shared with many marketing managers since starting at Xpand, and we've discussed how it can be used for a whole strategy, or even just down to a campaign. You know, if you've got a new product coming out, or you've got a campaign for a particular national day or an event, anything like that, you can use this process to run through how that might look. So if you think about stage one is discovery. It's talking about where you've been, where you are now, and where you're going. So thinking here, you'll talk about things like your goals, your audience, your competition, your operations, your processes, you name it, pretty much everything that goes on with your business. And then that's how you then move into phase 2, which is the strategy side. So in the strategy, that's where all the research is done. That's where you want to be looking at things like creating your personas, so those audience personas that Fran talked about earlier, you know, making sure that you've got those who is the who, and focusing your activity, you know, so whatever it is, whether it's the strategy, say for example it's a campaign on a new product, right? Well, who is this product for? Is it actually for the big overall persona that you look at, or is this for a smaller persona? So thinking about that. And then looking at the heart of the model, so you can see here, we believe that brand and content is at the heart of everything when it comes to marketing. It's about how you communicate with your audience. It's about putting down those solid foundations. So this is where you need to think, okay, well, what is the messaging? What are we putting out there? What, you know, on this particular campaign or in this whole marketing strategy, what are the key messages and how are we going to go about communicating them? What does the brand look like? You know, assessing everything at this point. Then we move into stage 4, which is our website. So what we like to call the home. So the website's often central part of digital presence. It's the center of the solar system. It's where all the visitors will go, and hopefully you will then, you know, bring them from different aspects and they will be brought back into the website. So, you know, everything that you do will hopefully encompass and direct traffic to your website. Sometimes that doesn't happen. We know social media is making a big thing of it becoming its own, but still you need that integration. You need them to work together. And then in terms of stage 5, we're talking about all the channels. So these are all the platforms, but how do you decide which platforms you're going to be on? Well, using this model helps you decide that. So when you're thinking about your campaign, right, okay, so we've discovered, we talked about it, we've then strategized, we've researched, we've looked at statistics, we then know what content, what message we're putting out, how does it look on the website? Okay, which channels are we using? Right, we're going to pitch it on social media and we're going to do an email campaign. Right, okay, let's work them out. How do they look? Then we go into, you know, pitching it, putting it out, doing it. Then we go into stage 6 where we review and we measure. We look at what worked, what didn't work. Have we got the KPIs? Have we set all of that up? And then the final stage, obviously what your bosses all want to know, what's the return on investment? So, you know, what have we actually seen? You know, what have we done this for? What was the performance? Was it based on hard data? What are the results? Not vanity metrics. You know, we're not bothered about that. It's the actual results at this point. Okay, if that all sounds very confusing to you, we do have a product that we work with many clients on called Alfred. Now, if any of you are aware of Batman, you will know who Alfred is. But basically, this is a package. It's a product that we work with. It's a consultancy and support role where we basically are here for our clients, that they talk with us a couple of hours a month, you know, an hour, whatever, and we strategize with them and give them support and guidance on how to do something. So it might be, for example, that one of our clients might ring us and go, right, what is threads? And we will give them some guidance and support. It might be that they're putting out a campaign and they just need us to look over it and give them a bit of support with that. So it's a product that we've got and that we offer. So if that's of interest to you, then just speak to Fran or I, drop us a message on LinkedIn or get in contact. Fran.
So now hopefully you know the 8 strategies to justify your marketing spend. We'll just go through them: building relationships and collaboration, anticipating and addressing objections, budget allocation and resource planning, developing a results-oriented marketing plan, defining key metrics for your marketing success, presenting your data analytics, leveraging technology and automation, and including case studies and examples.
So finally, I know we've gone 5 minutes over, so, well, technically we haven't because we didn't actually start until 5 past. But if anybody does have any questions that they would like us to answer, I can't see any in the chat, so hopefully that means that we've answered any questions that you did have at the beginning. But if you do want to talk to us independently and you don't want to ask anything out there in public, that's absolutely fine. But our QR codes are up on the screen now. So if you do want to connect with us on LinkedIn and drop us that message directly, then Fran or I would be happy to support or help. Hopefully you've all enjoyed the webinar. I appreciate there's a lot of information there, and we will be sending out the recording, copies of the slides to all attendees. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, hope you found it useful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.